At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge. Revenge for what exactly? For 1,000 years, the Sith remained in hiding under the guide of the Rule of Two, dodging the eyes of the Jedi, and making themselves little more than an urban legend until the time was right. The Sith had to evolve from the shadows. All of this sneaking around and hiding in the darkness when they were once a great army, one that challenged the Jedi on equal footing. But at some point in galactic history, the Sith were utterly humiliated. This humiliation would give way to humility, which brings us to how they managed to take over the galaxy from the inside. But what happened that day that the Sith were destroyed and were forced to be remade? What happened in the nightmarish Ruusan campaign? And the bloodiest battle of the Jedi and Sith in all of the lore. The battle that would change the Sith forever. The year was exactly 1000 BBY. Two armies collided on one planet to finish the war that they had been fighting for years. These two groups were the Army of Light and the Brotherhood of Darkness. Capping off the era was known as the New Sith Wars, with the Sith being led by a man named Lord Khan, who had finally devised a way to bring the backstabbing Sith under a single banner. Shirking the name Darth, they all agreed to call themselves Lords and became united in complete equality and respect for one another's power. The Sith had managed to retake their homeworld of Korriban and reopen the Sith Lords Academy. Along with this, they set up many academies all across the galaxy, such as the Marauder Academy on Honagur and the Assassin Academy on Umbara. As always, the Republic rose to the occasion. Led by Jedi General Hoth, the Republic fought against the Brotherhood of Darkness on several battlefronts, neither one really getting a leg up on the other. But both sides of the conflict remained even for their wins and their losses, stalemated in war. This was until Khan was closing in on Coruscant with his fleet, ready to finally take the Republic capital world once and for all and end the war. However, something was terribly wrong. There were hardly any Jedi on Coruscant at all. The Republic fleet had returned to defend the planet, but Lord Khan busted right through them and noticed no Jedi were actually present during the battle. This is when he got a troubling message delivered to him in person. The Jedi had retaken the critical planet of Ruusan. Lord Khan at first was confused, as his intelligence reported all the Republic ships had withdrawn to the capital, but that was when this was clarified. This wasn't the Republic military, but a massive army of Jedi Knights, Masters, and Padawans who were on Ruusan, calling themselves the Army of Light. One of the only times in the history of the Jedi, they donned armor and stood side by side in purely Jedi ranks. An army of Jedi Knights had assembled. Although this was terrifying, the Sith could not pass up the golden opportunity to destroy the Jedi in one fell swoop. So they called as many Sith Lords from each academy into a single place to face this new army on the battlefield. But Lord Hoth was a smart Jedi. He wanted to pull the Sith away from Coruscant and meet them on even ground. They were playing right into his hands. However, neither side of the conflict would be prepared for what would happen next. The Ruusan campaign was fought over the course of 7 battles, and to this day, it is renowned in history as the bloodiest conflict between the Jedi and the Sith. The Army of Light was split up into a few companies, one led by General Hoth, another led by Jedi Master Pernikar, and the last one was led by Valentine Farfalla. Each time the armies met on the battlefield would result in heavy losses. Thousands of Jedi and Sith. Hundreds would be lost at a time with each battle, within minutes. It got to the point where Lord Hoth was losing Jedi so fast that he had to start recruiting Padawans and young Jedi learners and children in order to keep the numbers in his army up. Both Hoth and his supporters abhorred the idea of having to do this, but they had no choice. It was this decision, along with others, that began to turn the Jedi Order's opinion against Lord Hoth. Many Jedi believed that the war was consuming him and leading him to the darkness. Not to mention, the Jedi was weary of having to fight the Sith after doing so for thousands of years, and each time the Sith returning. Hoth's popularity soon tanked, and soon enough, he was having trouble finding recruits from anywhere among the Jedi. It wasn't bad enough though, as there was dissension within his ranks in the very Army of Light, and Lord Hoth constantly butted heads with Farfalla, as their personalities constantly disagreed with one another. The only one to broker the peace between them was their mutual friend, Pernikar. Eventually, Master Farfalla took a small contingent of Jedi and abandoned the world of Ruusan on a diplomatic mission, one where they ventured to Coruscant so that they could recruit more Jedi to the cause. However, this would take months to accomplish, and in that time, the Sith had set up a blockade around Ruusan, trapping the Army of Light and cutting off their supply lines. This left the Jedi on Ruusan half-starved, with malfunctioning equipment, having to forage for food and repair their armor with whatever scrap metal was left behind. What made things worse is it was a rainy season on the world, causing them to have to slog through miles of mud when on marches and fight on terrain with slippery footing, only resulting in more and more death. At one point, Hoth mentally noted that his army looked more like a group of refugees than soldiers. Unfortunately, things would only get worse, as the Jedi General would soon gain word that his best friend, Jedi Master Pernikar, had been slain by a Sith ambush. At the time though, Valentine Farfalla managed to partially punch through the Sith blockade, bringing supplies and 300 fresh Jedi troops. However, the death of Master Pernikar sent Hoth over the edge, causing him to become furious with Farfalla for taking so long. Without their friend to broker peace, the two had a falling out that ended with Hoth refusing to speak to the Jedi ever again. While the Jedi were having it rough, the Sith side actually wasn't much better. By the time the students of Korriban arrived on Ruusan as reinforcements, they were met with a tired, beaten, and a pathetic, run-down Sith army. The soldiers were run down, and even the Sith Lords were exhausted. Their forces were very thin. Their blockade had kept the Republic fleet at bay, keeping the Army of Light from receiving supplies. However, the Sith were still unable to score more than a few victories over the Jedi, and soon the Sith were beginning to question Lord Khan's leadership. Meanwhile, Lord Khan was secretly losing his mind. To him, he was beginning to wonder if everything they had done had only served to pervert the idea of what this war was about. The Army of Light was fighting with ferocity and hatred, and the Brotherhood of Darkness were trying to rally each other under companionship and camaraderie. The lines between the light and the dark were beginning to blur together, and it was affecting the mind of Lord Khan and the Jedi. Not only this, he was paranoid about another Sith, Darth Bane, who he had just received word had killed two of the strongest Sith commanders and supporters, Kasim and Kuordis, and he could sense the powers of Bane coming to fruition. The armies were at a standstill, and as a result, the Jedi took to the forest, hiding among the trees, as they would use hit-and-run tactics to suddenly strike out against the Sith, and then vanish among the forest, causing Lord Khan to grow terrified that the Jedi could be anywhere. All the while, the war had devastated the landscape of the once lush Ruusan, driving the local wildlife insane. A species of Force-sensitive creatures called the Bouncers were usually friendly and kind, able to soothe the emotions of wounded creatures or soldiers they found by telepathically projecting calming thoughts and emotions. They were intelligent and could even transmit 2 to 3 worded messages into the minds of other intelligent beings. However, the ruptures in the Force and the destruction of the forest landscape had driven them mad, and the Bouncers became hostile. If the Jedi didn't have enough time to deal with them with camping in the forest, they weren't even allowed to get a good night's sleep, as the creatures would telepathically transmit nightmares and horrific imagery into their minds as they attempted to rest. But one night, General Hoth would receive a dream where he was visited by the ghost of his friend Pernikar. After the two of them spoke, Master Pernikar got Hoth to see how much he was letting the war consume him. Hoth did get to say goodbye to his old friend, and then decided to reconcile with Farfalla right before the next phase of the battle. Shockingly after this, there was a standstill in all of the fighting. The Sith and Jedi confused at what to do. Soon though, Darth Bane would make his way to the Brotherhood base camp and met with Lord Khan, informing him that his mistake was trying to fight the Jedi using traditional weaponry of war rather than their greatest ability, the Force. Lord Khan agreed with him, and Bane would lead the Sith Lords through a ritual where they all combined their might in the Force, attempting to summon a giant storm over the forest that would flush the Jedi out into the open. The storm was massive and had the power to destroy the Army of Light. Lord Khan ordered his army to pursue the Jedi to end them once and for all, but Darth Bane insisted that they continue using the storm, as it would be the most effective and efficient method. But the Sith were stuck in their ways, wanting to kill the Jedi by the lightsaber rather than this new, archaic method. Seeing that the Sith were hopeless, Darth Bane stayed behind in a now empty camp, and it was here that he decided to act on his plan to wipe the slate clean. In a stroke of genius, Darth Bane would use Khan's private transmitter to send a signal to the Sith fleet, ordering them to attack the Republic fleet. They did so, which of course broke the blockade formation, allowing Jedi reinforcements to slip into the surface world. And meanwhile, the Brotherhood of Darkness had the Jedi on the run. In what is known as the 7th Battle of Ruusan, the Sith nearly crushed the Army of Light, as Lord Khan and his starfighter had Hoth in his sights and was about to murder him. But then, all of a sudden, the Sith army was hit from behind by the new Jedi reinforcements. The Sith were forced to retreat after being outnumbered by the surprise attack, and once back at the base camp, Lord Khan had fully lost his mind following this critical defeat, completely at a loss at what to do next. All of their efforts had been destroyed, and they would certainly lose the war now that the blockade had been destroyed as well. But this is where Bane would take advantage of this madman, convincing him to use a ritual known as the Thought Bomb. Bane told him that it would destroy the Jedi completely, but what he didn't tell the Sith Lord was that the Thought Bomb would actually destroy every Force sensitive in range. The maddened Lord Khan took his word for it and ordered all of his men into a network of caverns to perform the ritual to end the Jedi once and for all. By the time Hoth's armies marched out to meet the Sith, they were surprised to find none of them, but the Sith armies protecting the mouth of the caves were the only warriors present. The Sith forces didn't even bother fighting much, and they just surrendered. At long last, it seemed like the War of Light and Darkness was over. However, after following an interrogation, Lord Hoth found out about the Thought Bomb and realized that he had to stop this weapon at all costs to get Lord Khan to detonate it early so that it wouldn't destroy every Jedi on Ruusan. He selected 99 Jedi volunteers to come with him on what they all knew was a suicide mission, and they marched into the caverns as the final stand of the Army of Light. As Lord Bane fled the world as quickly as possible, Lord Hoth and the Jedi stormed the caverns, only to find the Sith mid-ritual, forming an iridescent sphere of pure dark-side energy. Their intervention caused the Thought Bomb to detonate early, resulting in the complete annihilation and mutation of Ruusan's surface. Everyone within the blast site would have been turned to a husk of ash. Their spirits were consumed into an orb that now floated where the Thought Bomb had been unleashed. Within this orb, the spirits of the Jedi and Sith eternally melded and meshed in torment. Their minds and identities lost as they merged, moved, and separated in a never-ending cycle of horror. By the end of the Battle of Ruusan, Darth Bane was the final Sith alive in the entire galaxy. The Jedi, though, officially believed that the Sith had gone extinct with General Hoth's brave sacrifice. But it would be here where Bane would begin the Rule of Two, finding a young girl by the name of Zana. But do not feel too bad for the spirits of General Hoth and the brave Jedi that day, as they would eventually end up getting released from their torment, being freed by Kyle Katarn many generations later. And this concludes the Ruusan campaign, and the reason for the Sith's desire for revenge. Although Bane had shown great insight in his desire to wipe the slate clean for the Sith, the Brotherhood of Darkness caused the Sith's great legacy to go out in a whimper of defeat. In the end, the Ruusan campaign was a horror show, destroying the mentalities of the Jedi and Sith, revealing the gritty reality of war. The Jedi were forced to use literal child soldiers in order to facilitate victory, and thousands of Jedi would lose their lives. Those that did survive had to go through a living hell to get there, and it's no wonder that Grandmaster Faye Coven's reconstitution of the Jedi Order was such a welcome change to the warriors who had suffered so greatly. The young generation of Padawans needed to learn what it meant to be a real Jedi instead of being trained as warriors to fight on the front lines as soon as possible. Both sides were beginning to slip, fracturing their own beliefs in their respective sides of the Force. But now, whenever we mention the Battle of Ruusan, you will all know the dark and bloody story behind all of it. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on the Battle of Ruusan? And do you wish that we could get more gritty stories like this of the Jedi and Sith equally struggling to destroy the other? even compromising their own beliefs and morals in the Force. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, my friends, and thank you for staying tuned on this longer video. And as always, may the Force be with you and have a phenomenal day.